So this is the story of how 3D printing kind of inspired me to make my own disc, as well as some of the lessons I learned along the way to hopefully inspire or introduce someone else to 3D printing their own disc. So in June 2020, I purchased my first 3D printer from Amazon. It was an Ender 3 Pro, and after doing some research, I was looking for like an entry-level printer, but something that was still kind of decent. It came with a bunch of little models and stuff. When you first got it, there was a little dog I printed for my wife. I made some minis, some modifications for my cart, even some trophies for some events that I ran. So I got my mileage out of it pretty quickly. My first introduction to TPU, which is the flexible material, was in 2022, so not for almost 2 years later. I was in Arizona for the Memorial Championship, and my buddy Josh had a disc called the Mr. Putt from NSH, and this was a 3D printed PDGA legal disc. It was very unconventionally shaped. It was board flat on top, 90-degree angle to the side, and then 90-degree angle to the bottom. But it showed me that you can 3D print a disc and have it be flexible and have it be PDGA approved. So kind of just tucked it away and didn't really think about it for the better part of that year. Fast forward to later on that year, December, the end of my season came and went, and the thought entered my brain of 3D printing a disc as like a winter hobby. So I grabbed the closest disc to me, which was a Zone, and I looked up the diameter on the PDGA website, and I printed a circle just as a proof of concept of I can theoretically print a disc on my printer. So now begins the process of, well, how do I model a disc? How do I print it? Everything starts from here. I downloaded a program called FreeCAD, and I started sculpting a disc. I quickly realized that was not the best way to get a disc shape. So what I ended up figuring out was just to draw the side profile on a 2D plane and then extrude that along a circle for your diameter, and then that was the best way to get a consistent disc shape. So I had printed a disc overnight, and on December 31st, test 001 was born. And this would be the naming scheme that all of my prototypes would follow from this point forward. This was printed out of PLA, so it is rock solid, not flexible. And important is that the nose was supported. And this didn't leave a smooth finish anyway. When you would break out the supports, you can see there's a little bit of a grid pattern here, as well as when I was trying to figure out what the best orientation to print a disc was. So we have the nose angle problem, and this was test number 4. And you can see the top of this is flat, but the bottom has the support material, which I couldn't fully get off. So this kind of helped me realize that printing upside down was essentially the only option at that point. So then the next issue I was having was, as I designed discs, the nose, just looking at this is hilarious. The nose is just destroyed and inconsistent, and there would be some parts that printed fine, but it just was not consistently repeatable across the whole diameter of the disc. A lot of iterations were contingent on just, can this print well or not? And I went through a lot of prototypes trying to just get a consistent shape. But I was also trying to just narrow in on a flight path that I liked. But the main thing was, I need to find something that prints consistently. Through that troubleshooting process, I decided to purchase a larger print head nozzle for my printer. How this helped me was I was able to print further away from the previous wall I had printed, which allowed me to kind of have a more aggressive nose angle. Through that process, I kept prototyping, and I eventually got to a shape I liked and a shape that printed well, and that was test 12. Getting out to a field and doing some flight tests, it was the most overstable thing I had ever thrown. So I was kind of bummed, obviously. My design intention was like a straight to neutral stable approach disc, but I threw really overstable utility discs all the time. I had the 3.0 Crystal Flex trackers. I had the Stego for a while. Those type of discs were my jam, are my thing, still are my thing. So I was happy to put my seal of approval on this prototype, even though it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. But I had a disc that printed consistently. So then I had a disc that I was happy with how it flew, but now I needed to name it. This was a very difficult thing for me to go through. Through prototyping, I really liked the name Lotus, and I even think one of these, yeah. I really liked the Lotus as like a project name, but through my prototyping, Lotus had actually been taken by Clash, and I think it was March of 23, so that was out. And as I started thinking about it more, it was super obvious the whole time, Cherry Blossom. If you know me personally, I throw all pink, it's kind of my thing, and I love cherry blossoms. I have a couple shirts with like cherry blossoms on the back. My mitten bag's design is cherry blossoms, so I had thought for so long that most mold names are only one word, and I just hadn't thought about two-word names. So I had a name, I had a mold I liked, and it was around this time that I had made the decision to leave the Discraft Underground team. I had been sponsored by Discraft for the 5 years prior, so this was kind of a big move for me personally. With a easily, consistently printable mold with a name, I decided to print 3 versions and send it to the PDGA to try and get it approved. I had to come up with a company name or a manufacturer name to print it under. You know, the year prior, prototyping, designing, doing all of this, I decided that my manufacturer name would be Goeringer Discs. So little bit of time goes by and I get an email. Diameter of the disc was 1 millimeter too small. I was devastated at the time because I had followed all of the technical standards to a T. I didn't want to waste my time or money sending in something that was doomed to fail from the beginning, but I confirmed that was the only thing about it that failed, increased the diameter and sent it back in, and on December 31st, the Cherry Blossom was PDGA approved. I still can't articulate just how cool that is. Created something from the ground up and I can use it in tournaments now. That's just, it's still a really, really cool feeling. So this is the Cherry Blossom that is in my bag right now. That is how the Cherry Blossom got started. Some time went, but this summer I started to get back into prototyping. So now that I had a mold in the Cherry Blossom that I could consistently print and refine, I started tweaking the nose angle of the Cherry Blossom just ever slightly through the iterations of prototyping. And I believe it was test 17, which was the next, I would say, milestone that I was really, really happy with. I was able to throw it flat, it held a straight line, slight finish at the end, and I had the flight I was looking for from the very beginning. So now I had to think of a name for this one. So I was trying to think of if I wanted a theme, if I wanted to follow other manufacturers' footsteps and make a theme, or if I really wanted to cement that I was doing my own thing and I would name it whatever I wanted. But the fact that I used the Cherry Blossom as like a starting point and modeled it from there made me think that it needed to be inspired after the Cherry Blossom. And so after doing some research, I came up with the Apple Blossom. So I sent in 3 copies of the Apple Blossom to get PDGA approved. It got approved on the first try, so I learned my lessons from last time. It's been really, really cool to see this journey from start to finish, kind of where I started with this guy and where I'm at now. So I just wanted to share my story, share my experiences. Hopefully this inspires someone to create something. It doesn't have to be 3D printing a disc. It doesn't have to be disc golf related at all. It could be just with 3D printing or anything you're interested in. I started from, the ground up with no 3D printing or modeling experience. I was reading research papers on aerodynamics, trying to understand why discs flew the way they do. So anything is possible, and I sincerely encourage all of you to try and research and do things that you're interested in. because making stuff is really, really cool. So the passion I've had for this and the appreciation that I feel and the appreciation I've gotten from other people who have shown interest is incredible. So thank you to anyone who's asked to see it or talked to me about it. I love talking about disc golf, and this is something that will have a special place in my heart for a very, very long time. So if you made it this far, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys on the course.
Oh, fuck.